Hello, here we are again with Mookie Tenembaum. We are in the process of exploring his philosophical system, which is called Disillusionism. And we are now in an interesting development, which has to do with his concept of misalgia, and the aversion, the running away from pain and suffering. And the next matter to address in this series of videos is, how is it that we do that? How do we decide which suffering to run away from in each occasion? Is there a priority system? Is this system constant? Does it change? This is what we are going to try to discover in this second video of the series.
Well, you know that suffering normally does not come by itself, one suffering. Normally you are dealing with a lot of suffering. First of all, let me put one thing in the frame, and then I will leave it, but I want to make it clear. The majority of our sufferings, the large majority, are fears. Fear of, yes? So we're suffering because something will happen. We're also suffering from the past, yes? Fear is really suffering from the future. We're suffering from the past. Guilt, I think, is the most common suffering that has to do with the past. And then there is a suffering, the immediate suffering. So, but what I wanted to say is that the priorities has to do with your own value of, how can I say, the suffering load, the load the suffering has. But in fact, not that it has, that you think it has. You see, when you put things in priorities, it's because you think that these are that this is going to be worse than the other one. So I give you an example. I am sitting in my house. I'm eating lunch, and my steak is burned. I like to eat rare, and the steak is burned here in my house. Or no, you see, I say my house because I'm eating all the time at my house. But let's say I'm in a restaurant. Okay, let's make it nice. So I am in the restaurant. They bring me a meal, and I get angry. Why my steak is burned? Now I have to ask for it again. I have to wait a lot. They're waiting for me in another meeting, blah, blah, blah. But in the middle of it, if in the middle of it, yes, somebody passes by me, a waiter, and pours on me hot coffee, believe me, the steak is gone. I may, when I will tell it in the future, I went to this restaurant, I was burned by coffee, and not only I was burned by coffee, they will give me a burnt steak. So, but basically, I put things in a certain priority. So I deal with one thing and not with the other. Of course, that's automatic, yes, the priority. Sometimes it's not so automatic, and you do numbers. So one way of putting priority is time. What is closer in time? Okay, so I will choose a threat that is closer in time, or that the magnitude of the threat is bigger. So clearly, if I am, once again, I'm arguing with somebody about something in the street, and somebody comes with a gun to stick me up, obviously that will take precedence. But because it's happening now, and because it's a gun, both. Even a gun, even if they're going to, if I'm afraid of being robbed somewhere in the street a week from now, that I will be with a lot of money, yes? Even if I have that fear, which is happening for me now, of course, yes, the suffering of the fear is now. So even in that case, yes, I will give it much more importance to that than a burnt steak in 10 minutes. Or not, or I will ignore it and just don't do anything about it. This is the system, the priority system. Now, I'm sorry, you asked me about what's happening now.
Well, yes, of course. The next question would be, how does this priority system functions under the current circumstances, under the COVID-19
we have to
pandemic?
Say we are currently in the middle of the pandemic, because this video may be seen somewhere after the pandemic, and people will not understand what I'm talking about. Oh yes, they will remember. But anyway, during the pandemic, priority number one was our life. And I would say your life or the people you love. You see, there is I would say a mischievous result to this pandemic, and it is that we cannot trust another person, even if it's your own son, that he or she can infect you, or your own child, your own infant, or your father or your mother. And you also have to be careful not to do it to your parents or to old people. So the priorities suddenly are those. So people are staying 2 meters one from the other, and they put now they put a mask, but they're staying at their home. So the priority is inside of their home. But the other priority that starts beginning now is the economic result of the pandemic. That's now coming into upfront, and many people, many who already lost their job, it is already their first priority now. But you don't have to go that far. People in Peru they had the best lockdown ever. The only problem is that half the people, if they don't work, they die. They die from starvation. They just die. Yes, they starve to death. And of course, people in front of certain death or possible death, I think they know the numbers. So we have a problem with that, because now we have priorities of one people, hitting the priorities of the others. So, but basically, depending on each individual, the priorities will be 1 or 2. They're not 100, 150. Okay, people have gained a lot of weight during this lockdown. It's known. I don't see people very worried about it. Not very worried.
What about the future? What about the priorities in suffering we have to expect after the pandemic is over? What do you see there?
I am afraid we're going to see many new, renewed type of suffering. We're already seeing what's happening with the story of George Floyd and the riots and all the looting and the whole thing that's happening in the United States. And this is just the beginning of it. I think we're going to see people there's going to be a lot of discontent. Either one of two. Either the people will have lost all their jobs, or the states will go bankrupt for trying to pay for people whose work is not needed. And it will take some time. Some countries will go one way, some others will go other way. But people themselves, those who have a job, will have a certain kind of priorities. Those who don't have a job, a very different set of priorities. And the reaction, the way they react to that suffering, to that fear, to the result of that fear, we've seen it in the past. But again, at some point, this will end, and we will be back in the old times. But that will take at least 5 years, at least, maybe more.
Interesting. We'll go on in a different video. Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed the video, please like it, comment, and subscribe.